Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for September 1st, 2021. Before we get started today, I'd like to recognize a departing employee. Stephanie Iyoko has been a Department of Energy Fellow with the Commission for the past year and has ably assisted the commissioners and our staff with an array of tasks, including cost-benefit analysis, and as well as preparing me for a presentation today on ESG. Stephanie has been a wealth of support for us over the past year, and we want to thank her for her service to the state and wish her well as she becomes an energy industry analyst at FERC in their Office of Energy Market and Regulation. So congratulations to Stephanie. Thank you for your support of myself, the commissioners, and the advisors over the past year. We have meeting minutes to approve for our last meeting on August 25th, 2021. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The meeting minutes are approved. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. There are 8 items on today's consent agenda. Items number 1 through 7 are unbundled network element loop forbearance amendments to interconnection agreements between Verizon Maryland LLC and respectively Lumos Networks LLC, Lumos Networks of West Virginia, Inc., NOS Communications, Inc., Quantum Telecommunications, Inc., Blockline Systems LLC, another from Blockline Systems LLC, and Bartel USA, Inc. And finally, item number 8 is a notice from KWH Savings LLC of cancellation of bond from Old Republic Surety Company.
Thank you. Do commissioners have any questions on these 8 consent agenda items? Seeing none, I would move that with respect to items number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, that we approve the interconnection agreement amendment 10 days after a 30-day comment period unless adverse comments are filed. And with respect to item number 8, I move that we cancel the company's electricity supplier license. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motions are approved. Mr. Secretary, the administrative agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, items 9 and 10 are requests from Federal Realty Investment Trust for approval nunc-pro-tunc of energy allocation systems for apartments at respectively Henry and at Pike and Rose, 11870 Grand Park Avenue, Bethesda, Maryland, and the Palace at Pike and Rose at 11550 Old Georgetown Road, Bethesda, Maryland. On this item for staff, we have Mikhail Spiegelman and James Greger, and for the company, David Bugelmans, Erica Martin, Mike Newton, Zachary Gallup, and Sylvia Martin.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Spiegelman.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Michael Spiegelman on behalf of staff. This item concerns a request filed on April 21st, 2021 by Federal Realty Investment Trust for approval non-pro-tunc to install 2 energy allocation systems. One system for a 319-unit apartment building located at 11550 Old Georgetown Road, Bethesda, Maryland. And second system for 272-unit apartment building located at 11870 Grand Park Avenue, Bethesda, Maryland. Public Utility Article Section 7-304B2 states that energy allocation systems may not be used for direct billing of energy costs to a tenant of an individual dwelling unit unless the Commission approves the system in accordance with this subsection. Homer 20.26.0201 further specifies general approval criteria for an energy allocation system, namely, 1. Approval may be granted upon demonstration by the owner that the system results in reasonable determination of the cost of the energy use within the dwelling unit. 2. Testing and inspection of the energy allocation system may be required for the Commission to make such a determination. And 3. Testing and inspection of any furnace, appliance, or other equipment used in conjunction with energy allocation system may be also required. Federal Realty Investment Trust has contracted with Conservice LLC for the installation of energy allocation systems that will allow the owner of the apartment buildings to allocate to a tenant of an individual dwelling a portion of the cost of gas and electric energy consumed based on usage. Federal Realty Investment Trust initial application contain all information required under COMAR 20.26 and subsequent data request responses has given staff no causes or concern in regards to the system themselves. The apartment building's construction is complete and energy allocation system would comply with requirements under the relevant COMAR provision. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission approve an energy allocation systems non-pro-tunc for the 2 Federal Realty Investment Trust apartment buildings located in Bethesda, Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spiegelman, for your analysis. We'll turn to counsel for Federal Realty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. David Begelmans on behalf of Federal Realty Investment Trust. I'm joined today by Sylvia Martin, the Director of Asset Management for FRIT, Erica Martin, the National Account Manager for Conservice, Mike Newton, the Director of Account Management for Conservice, and then finally, Zachary Gallup, Meters Assistant Team Lead for Conservice. We have nothing to add to staff's excellent presentation, but we have the full team here to answer any questions the Commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn to see if commissioners have questions. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Begelmans, let me start with the company. When did your client roughly, approximately, obtain a use and occupancy permit for these properties?
That's a good question, Your Honor. I do not have the exact date on hand for when they obtained the use and occupancy permit, but I can tell you that with respect to at least the Palace building, the EMS system has been installed and operational since at least 2015. I don't know, Ms. Martin from FRIT, do you have any additional details for the Commissioner?
The Palace apartment, I believe we received our substantial completion certificate. It would have been just before I joined, so perhaps late 2015. I joined in the spring of 2016 when we were already in lease up, but had just started. So that's my best estimate. I'm trying to find the exact date, but it would have been late 2015 is my best estimate, just off.
That's fine. How about the other building? I specifically said approximate because I don't need to know the exact date. I'm just trying to figure out how long these things have been in service.
Sure. And then the second building, Henry, was we received substantial completion in 2017.
Okay. So
2018. I'm sorry, 2018.
2018. So 3 to 6 years, maybe something like that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And could someone from the company kind of put some meat on the bones as to how you became aware of this and how COMAR wasn't employed for authorization for these EASs up front?
I could take a shot at that, Your Honor, and then the wider team could chime in if I miss anything. This came to the attention of FRIT when it received a complaint for the Palace building related to a customer bill back issue. And ultimately, that complaint was resolved with the customer. But at that point, the FRIT legal team, after reviewing the Maryland law and COMAR, realized that indeed there is a requirement for commission approval for these systems. For the Palace system, FRIT's contract with the initial operator, a company called Energy Management Systems, did require EMS to procure all licenses and permits, but it didn't do so. I can tell you that generally And I think this is reflected in staff's buck sheet, but these systems are in most states not regulated by any state agency. So whether it's a public service commission or some other licensing board. So in terms of requirements, this is quite unusual. I mean, obviously, ignorance of the law is generally not an excuse, but for these providers, I think the idea that a public service commission needs to license the system is unusual, and that's my understanding. It was simply just a lack of knowledge of Maryland specific requirements. I guess I'll open the floor. Ms. Martin, do you have anything additional to add?
No, I don't, David. Thank you for that recap. I mean, that's effectively exactly what occurred. We became aware of the need for this requirement through our due diligence on following up on a resident complaint.
And how many complaints have you received over the 3 to 6 years of the operations of these systems regarding billing, allocation, questioning usage, et cetera?
Just the one, sir.
Just one? Okay. In response to data request 2.2, there's language that I believe was inserted into your lease. Is that retrofitted into all leases now? Referencing the COMAR requirements?
Right. So we've updated our template leases to have the appropriate language.
And the red line is, so the whole section, the template language is all new, but did you go back and retrofit that language into existing leases?
So we don't have the ability, our leases are typically, 12 months or less. So once the change was made, it was put into effect immediately. So, all new leases and upon renewal, the language is in there now. So for at least, I guess to answer your question more directly, tell me if I am or not, like at least from 5 years ago would not have been, edited or updated because that lease is no longer in place.
Yeah, so I'm just wanting to make sure that the consumers who are your customers who rent your units have notice of the complaint process and how that all works with regard to COMAR, because these are important consumer protections, which we're always concerned about here at the commission. And I want to make sure that the vast majority of your tenants have notice of these COMAR requirements.
They do, sir. All current leases have the language in there, so they are fully aware.
Okay, fair enough. And the red line language in the middle of that DR 2.2 for the lease, that was added after application was made to the commission for approval of the EAS. Am I getting that right?
So I've pulled that up on my screen, Your Honor, and that's correct. And in fact, I think what this is showing, it's basically an iteration. So we submitted the applications with the commission with the text you see there that's not red line. And then staff asked us to DR and we realized that the new red line language needed to be added in. So that's effectively what that's showing. It's that change in response to staff's feedback in DR.
All right, fair enough. I will just comment, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote in favor of these items, but I wanted to get some information on the record and make sure I understand what's going on here. I will say via comment that how other states do things and how their regulatory scheme is set up is of no interest to me. I'm interested in compliance with Maryland law and Maryland regulations, and they do it differently elsewhere. It doesn't hold any water at all with me. So I'll just say that. But thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Additional questions of the parties? Seeing none.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Just a couple of hopefully very brief follow-up questions. Just to be clear, the request that's in front of us today is really in two parts. First is to approve the EAS system as was reviewed by the commission staff as it exists currently. And then a second request, which is to backdate the approval to the 2000, I suppose it's 15, or is it 2017 timeframe
Two buildings, sir. So,
for 2 buildings?
yes, sir.
So we're looking at stating that the system met all appropriate safety standards and everything for stating that today for a period of time for 3 years ago. So do we have anything to suggest that the system would have passed the same inspection in 2015 or in 2017 that we've currently put it through as of right now?
Commissioner James
I'm
Greger on
sorry.
staff. So no, and in fact, we did the inspection as the system currently exists now. And based on that inspection, that's where, that's the starting point that we conducted our analysis and rendered our recommendation. But we don't have any knowledge on how the system existed 3 years ago or 5 years ago when it was first installed.
Okay, then so for the company, the system that the commission staff has reviewed up to its current right now, is that the exact same system that was in place in 2015? Have there been improvements or changes or repairs or anything of that sort from the time it was first installed to now?
No, sir. It's the same system from inception.
So everything is the same.
Yes, sir.
I think well, I did have one other question for Mr. Bugelmans. You did note that in your request, you said that you were requesting this filing to be made a non-pro-tunc. Everybody knows that's an old friend of mine. I think, Mr. Bugelmans, you're aware, the principle of non-pro-tunc is designed to correct administrative errors in the record. The commissions, for example, might have typed a date incorrectly or something of that sort. But it doesn't appear as though you're making an allegation here this morning, or there's nothing in the record at least to suggest that the administrative agency, the commission, made some error in this permitting process back in 2017 or 15. Is that correct to say?
I think that's correct, Your Honor. And
Okay, so
yeah, I'm sorry.
that's all right. So I guess what we're really then, I think, Mr. Chairman, what they're asking for is for us to backdate the granting of the permit to, I guess, whichever date for depending on the different locations. So it isn't non-pro-tunc, but it's just to backdate it, just so that the record is clear that we're not suggesting that the commission has made an administrative error in processing this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The nunc-pro-tunc doctrine can also be used in the sense that an adjudicating body is extending a rule-based deadline. So in that sense, that would be the request for nunc-pro-tunc, that from a legal perspective, this deadline would have been extended to now, and approval would have been in a timely manner, at least from a legal perspective. So when the request is for nunc-pro-tunc approval, that is basically what we're asking for as far as or what the applicant is asking for as far as a nunc-pro-tunc approval, that second nature of nunc-pro-tunc, and not the administrative correction as is often used when using that term.
Well, those are the same thing, aren't they? So we're extending the deadline because of an administrative issue. It's not that in this case, I think the applicant's cover letter stated it fairly clearly, that they contracted for an entity to handle this licensing, and the company didn't do it.
Yeah.
So that's not that isn't an issue that has anything to do with the commission.
I agree, Your Honor, and the intent wasn't to suggest the commission made an error here. I think looking back at previous similar requests, and I think this is where you've made these comments before, that's just the caption that's been used. But in reality, this is effectively a retroactive approval. And if the commission wants to caption it that way, I think that's appropriate.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's really all I had.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, I would move that with respect to items numbers 9 and 10, that we approve non-protunct the energy allocation systems. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Mr. Chairman, I would vote no if it's not goes on.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye, but I'd like to acknowledge the comments of Commissioner Linton, which I share some of.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Mr. Secretary, the final item.
Mr. Chairman, item number 11 on today's agenda is the STRIDE surcharge project status report from Columbia Gas of Maryland, Inc. On this item for staff, we have Carlos Acosta and Annette Garofalo, and for the company, Megan Moore, Ken Fillion, and Rebecca Danhires.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Acosta.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Carlos Acosta on behalf of Commission staff. On July 30 of this year, Columbia submitted its calendar year 2021 STRIDE mid-year report on the status of the 2021 projects approved by the Commission on December 2nd, 2020 for recovery through Columbia's infrastructure replacement and improvement surcharge. This is the third year of Columbia's STRIDE 2 program. The report shows that the company has physically completed gas flowing and maining service, 2 of its 6 STRIDE priority main replacement projects through June 30, 2021. The remaining 4 projects are expected to be completed by the end of the fourth quarter of the 2021. It is important to note that all of these projects include replacing low-pressure bare steel pipe with medium-pressure plastic pipe. According to the filing, the company is on target to complete all of its projects by the end of the current year. Staff has reviewed the filing and found the calculations to be accurate. Staff recommends that the Commission note the filing. I am available to answer any questions you may have on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. We'll turn to counsel for the pipeline.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Megan Moore on behalf of Columbia. And as the Secretary mentioned, I also have from our Rates and Regulatory Department, Rebecca Danhires, and from our Engineering Department, Ken Fillion. The company appreciates staff's thorough review of our report, and we have nothing to add at this time, but we're here for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Do my colleagues have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Acosta, did the company give our engineering staff any indication? I mean, I note the buck sheet says all of these projects have replacement of low pressure main with medium pressure plastic main, bare steel main with plastic main. But did the company give any indication of how much? Like, is it a de minimis piece of low pressure, or is it, the large part of these projects? Did they indicate how much? Because there's everything else is quantified by linear feet and a whole bunch of other measures, but for the low pressure system, which, to be honest with you, I feel like is inserted for me, and I appreciate that, and the commission generally as well. We don't talk about how much. We just say there's some.
Yes, in the filing, they present all the linear feet that they are replacing, but they are trying to get ready all the bare steel pipe, which is low pressure, and now most of the system is becoming to be medium pressure, which is a little more safer than the low pressure.
So are you saying all 6 of these projects are 100% low pressure bare steel main?
Yes, is
100%.
what the filing said.
Okay, let me ask the company, is that accurate? 100% low pressure?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner O'Donnell. I'm going to pass to Ken Fillion to clarify. I'm not sure that we know the exact footage, but Ken, are you aware if we know if it's 100% low pressure?
per each project? Is that what's being asked?
I think so. I think the commissioner is wondering, you know, we say we're eliminating.
I think the commissioner was clear in his question, Mr. Fillion. If you need him to ask again, ask Commissioner O'Donnell again. We don't need your attorney translating for you what we just heard.
If you would, Commissioner O'Donnell, go ahead and ask it again, just so I can.
Yeah, so I asked about the quantity of low pressure main that was being replaced in each of the 6 projects because it's not laid out. And Mr. Acosta's understanding was that 100% of these projects are low pressure bare steel main. And my question to the company is that correct? Is it 100% on all 6 projects?
Okay, I can tell you here. The vast majority of it is low pressure, and I can verify that by what's written in the project description. I think on Pocahontas, we might be replacing some medium pressure. Yeah, Pocahontas, we're replacing some medium pressure as well. But for the bulk of the 6 projects defined, the vast majority of it is low pressure.
Good. That's helpful for me to know. Because we specific, maybe I missed it. Maybe we do call it out, but I just heard and saw some, or each project contains some low pressure. But so to know that the vast preponderance of this replacement under Stride is low pressure is helpful for me to know about the company's priority system. Because for me, that's an important aspect of prioritizing these strategic replacements under the Stride program. So thank you to staff, Mr. Acosta, for your very thorough analysis, and thank you to the company for responding to my question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Any additional questions for the company or staff? Seeing none, with respect to item number 11, I move that we note the filing. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved with no additional business on today's administrative meeting. Today's meeting is now adjourned. Have a nice day.
Thank you.